Hey guys, YouTube land, chips and dip time, but we're going to set those aside because we're not here to talk about chips and dip. Although, Dean's French onion dip, you can't beat it. It's so good. And no, they're not sponsoring me. Anyway, let's talk about the Mueller report and obstruction of justice and collusion. So, why did Trump not commit obstruction of justice? There were several reasons, actually. And it doesn't have anything to go into whether or not they cannot charge the President of the United States. It comes down to intent. And we'll talk about intent here for a second. And just to explain it, you think about Martha Stewart, who they were investigating for securities fraud. And she lied during the investigation, and they charged her with lying to federal investigators. And they didn't charge her with obstruction of justice. Why? Because in that case, they would have had to prove intent. And since there was no underlying crime, you not only have to show, okay, she lied, but she knowingly lied to mislead investigators. And that's what they call the perjury trap. But the perjury trap is saying, well, she lied. Why did she lie? Well, she might have misremembered or something else. It's not, I mean, if you think, well, everybody lies to mislead investigators, it's not always intentional or purposeful. And it's not always for that cause. Maybe you got personal stuff you just don't want to air out or whatever. And if they can't prove that the intent was to obstruct justice, then they can't charge her with that. They charge her with lying. So Trump, what Barr came out basically and said, and the funny thing is that the reporter in the press briefing that day, and I've seen a couple on the TV misspoke, or misquoted, or just purely lying because they've lied to us every damn day for the last 2 years. The CNN and MSNBC and all that. Trump's a collude with Russia. Trump's an agent of Russia. Trump is an actual agent of Russia. And they have zero credibility left, whatnot. You've lied literally every single day for 2 years. Nothing you say is trustworthy anymore. But Barr was actually quoting the Mueller report when he said, you take into account Trump's cooperation on whether or not his intent was to lie or not, or to deceive or obstruct justice. Leave on lying. To obstruct justice. Trump had the right to fire Comey, and that's one of the 10 instances. Well, he has the right, as the President of the United States, to fire Comey, and for any reason. So you have to prove he did it only to obstruct the investigation. But Comey was the head of the FBI. Comey wasn't running the investigation into, at that point, the Russia collusion. So the argument from the liberals is, well, you fired Comey to stop the investigation. It didn't stop the investigation. It wouldn't have stopped the investigation. The investigation wasn't being done specifically by Comey. He was just the head of FBI. Ergo, that's patently incorrect. He couldn't have done it to stop the investigation like that because it didn't stop the investigation. Duh. And it wouldn't have, at any case. Nonetheless, there's a lot of talk about, well, Trump tried to fire Mueller. He actually talked about it. He actually was making an attempt to do it. Trump can literally say he is the top law enforcement officer in the country when he's president. Any president is. He could have actually said, I'm stopping this investigation because I didn't collude and you're wasting time and money. And it wouldn't have been, they would have to at that point prove that he colluded to be able to say it was obstruction of justice, and that was the only reason he did it, because Trump had the right. He could have fired Mueller. He literally could have fired Mueller, and it's his legal right as president to do so. It might have been a political price to pay, but it still wouldn't have been illegal. So any of the stuff that he did was within his realm. Now you got to prove intent. And here's where it comes down to what Barr was saying. The intent that he wanted to not have the investigation continue or have what it needs to continue or to complete its job, he gave over 1.5 million documents. He didn't use executive privilege on him or any of his staff, which he could have done, and that wouldn't even, I mean, you can't claim, as an executive, that's his privilege, quote unquote. You can't claim obstruction of justice if he would have done that. If he says, you know what, you're not getting it, it's like taking a fifth. Except when you're president, the people below you, you can claim the fifth on their behalf. It's not really a fifth, but it's called executive privilege. He could have said, you're not talking to any of my staff. We're not giving you anything. If you want to come after me, you have to do it on your own. I'm not helping you. But no, he gave them 1.5 million documents, told his staff to comply completely with the investigation, and every one of them did. So now what you're going to have to do is say intent, that you're proving intent when William Barr and Rod Rosenstein, who is the guy who was trying to get Trump on the 26th Amendment, even agreed that there was no intent to obstruct justice. I mean, sure, Barr's an appointee, but there's other people that were involved in this who aren't appointees that, quite frankly, don't like Trump that agreed. So now what the House has to do is say, and what you have to understand is, an impeachment is like a trial of the president, but in Congress. And in any trial, you get both sides presented. What liberals are doing right now is picking one thing out and saying, well, I'm just going to take this out, and it's instructive judgment. We can impeach. Well, no, you can take that piece out, but when you look at the total picture, the big picture, you have to include everything, including somebody coming in and saying, Trump gave 1.5 million documents. Trump didn't use any executive privilege. He told everybody to comply completely. It was his right. You have to take the whole picture when you do an impeachment. You can't just say, well, we have one little piece of evidence. We're going to use it and say he obstructed. Which is exactly what the liberals are doing. They're not taking the whole picture like Barr did and Mueller, because he is actually kind of repeating why Mueller said that he didn't have the ability to charge or think that he could recommend charge. He couldn't charge the president. But if you recommend charges, that's enough for the Senate to move forward. He couldn't even say, I recommend charges, because he was taking in there intent. And Barr took into account intent. And if you can't prove that intent, you're not going to get it in court, and that's what Barr's saying. You know, there's no way you could go to court and get a conviction on this. So we're not going to charge, because we wouldn't charge a normal citizen that doesn't have the executive privilege, and you can't charge the president all that. He's saying in that case, it's not really chargeable. You wouldn't get a conviction. So what the House is going to say now, if they move forward with impeachment, is saying, well, no crime was committed as evidenced by the DOJ saying so, but we're going to call it a crime anyway and just try and impeach them. Well, that's going to be a good political nightmare. I mean, that's kind of like saying, here, Mr. Trump, have the perfect slam against the Democrats in 2020. I mean, there was no crime. The DOJ said there was crime. Rosenstein, who hates me, who tried to get me kicked out on the 26th Amendment, even said there's no crime. But the Democrats said, well, we're going to make it a crime anyway just because we don't like you. Perfect. Go for it. See what happens in 2020. So then we'll come back to the next point about 2020. And this is getting fun. 19 different Democrats in there. So it goes one of two ways. You're in 19 Democrats. You divide that by, 100% divided by 19, that's 5.67% or something like that. So if somebody gets 6% of the vote, they're the vote leader, 6%. So if Crazy Bernie gets 7.5%, 8%, and everybody else just splits up like 5.5% and 6% and that, or any of these just liberal nuts that just has their little following, then they are going to have the most votes. So what's going to happen? Probably going to go to convention, which counts for two problems. Number one, which means they're going to say in convention, well, the elites of the Democrat Party don't like the people's choice. We're going to make them take who we want them to take. We're going to decide, other than who got the most votes, who's going to be the nomination. Which, again, is a perfect talking point for Trump. The totalitarian, fascist Democrat socialist over here. We don't care what you want. We're going to give you what we say you're going to get. And then secondly, if it does go to convention, the Democrat convention until summer 2020, 4 months. 4 months of campaigning. And I don't know if you know this or not, but the law is there's a difference between fundraising when you're a primary candidate and what you can spend and what you can raise when you're the actual primary winner and you're the candidate for whatever office, in this case, presidency. There are actual legal requirements in that. You can't start fundraising for president until you're the nominated candidate on that party. So it's going to kill the fundraising for the Democrat Party if they go to convention, firstly, if they don't certify after the primary. And secondly, they're only at 4 months, so they have to get it all in and then get on the road. Because they might even tell somebody, oh, we're going to pick this guy. You go ahead and know right up front, we're going to pick you. Or we're going to make sure you get in like Hillary did. and he still can't fundraise. He still can't go out and stump the right way because it's illegal. It's against campaign finance laws. So it's going to turn into a real shit show. Hilarious shit show, as a matter of fact. So you're either going to get, and I guarantee it, because, you got some good candidates. Don't get me wrong. I think, you got some good candidates on the Democrat side. But, I mean, nobody's going to sit here and think that Elizabeth Warren's going to get all these votes and all that. But she siphons off 2 or 3%. And Beto siphons off 2 or 3%. You're lowering all the rest of them. It's just perfect setup for some nut job to come in who has a little following. And now he's got the most votes. And then the Democrat Party explained why they're going to say, oh, no, y'all voted for him. He's got most votes, but we're going to give you who we want you to have. In that totalitarian, fascist kind of way. I mean, remember what happened in 2016? Bernie was planned against. You don't get to pick your own leader. You don't get to pick who's going to be we're going to tell you who to have. I mean, general fascist ruling party thought processing there. So, between all this and perfect setup, timing perfect right now, the IG report, they got 30 investigations going on over the FISA warrant stuff, the mishandling of Hillary's investigation, the all kinds of different stuff about the whole Russia investigation and stuff. The AG, Attorney General, he's opened up investigations. We've got criminal referrals from the Senate to Democrats. I mean, the Republicans basically just sat back and said, oh, go ahead, let this play out and let it fizzle. And then now, in 2020, 4 or 5 months before the election, all these arrests of Democrats are going to happen. Months, 2, 3, 4 months right before an election. Democrat arrested, Democrat arrested, Democrat arrested, Democrat arrested. Oh, man. Democrats, y'all played this one quite a bit wrong on that. I mean, like I said, press has lied every day for 2 years. How much credibility over this whole thing is there anymore between people who aren't just dyed in the wool? I hate Trump Democrats. It's all getting hilarious if you sit back and actually understand what's going on. Trump's going to declassify a lot of the documents that are involved in this now that that part of it's over. And there's already been, I mean, Nellie Orr, Bruce Orr, there's been some declassification, and I know the mainstream media didn't cover it. But if you actually see what's been going on, there's testimony out there. Obama knew what was going on. There's testimony out there that the FBI knew where that dossier came from before they used it on the first FISA warrant. That was from Bruce Orr. And now we're going to declassify more and more stuff. more truth's going to come out. And the people who are actually bad, Democrats ain't going to pay attention. No, that's not true. Trump's just bad. Democrats are going to pay attention to it. But the middle, the people who are actually decided, the people who gave Trump the election, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, they are paying attention. And they're going to eat the Democrats' lunch in 2020. And my prediction is, of course, the Republicans are going to retain the Senate, might get the House back, and definitely going to get Trump back in 2020. Make snowflakes cry again 2020. Don't put MAGA on your hat. MSCA. Make snowflakes cry again. I'm getting me a lounge, sharing some popcorn, sitting downtown Atlanta and watching the meltdown.